The dog came out of nowhere. Mud-covered, ribs showing, eyes wild with desperation. Then it happened fast. Tires screeched, a police cruiser swerved, and Officer Tom Reyes barely had time to shout, "Look out! Dog on the road!" But before the squad car could slow down, the stray sprinted across the intersection, dodging bumpers and horns, running like its life depended on it. People on the sidewalk gasped. A few teenagers laughed. One man actually yelled, "Hey, somebody grab the mutt before it causes an accident!" Tom ignored them. He'd been on the force for 25 years, long enough to know the difference between a stray running aimlessly and an animal running in fear. This one was terrified and determined. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12, Tom said into the radio. "We've got a stray dog sprinting eastbound on Lincoln. Possible injury. Dispatch animal control." Before he could finish, the dog skidded to a stop in the middle of the road. And that's when the bullying started. A group of older teenage boys, hoodies, bikes, cheap bravado, stepped into the street, blocking the animal's escape. "Aw, what's wrong, little freak?" one taunted, kicking dirt toward it. Another spun his bike tire dangerously close to the dog's legs. A third boy picked up a handful of gravel and tossed it, laughing when it hit. The dog yelped in pain, stumbling backward. Tom slammed the cruiser door open. "Hey, cut it out!" he roared, voice echoing through the quiet morning. The boys scattered like frightened pigeons, but not before one sneered, "It's just a stray. Should have hit it with your car." Tom's jaw tightened. But the dog didn't look at the boys. It looked at him. Right at him. Then it barked once. Not a warning bark. Not fear. A plea. Then it turned and took off again. "Why are you running?" Tom muttered, already chasing after it on foot. The animal didn't run straight. It zigzagged between houses, crashed through bushes, and darted under fences like it trained for this. It kept glancing back to make sure Tom was still following him, not trying to escape him, but leading him. "Okay, boy," Tom canted, climbing over a low wall. "Where are you taking me?" The animal ignored him and sprinted down a narrow alley behind a row of old houses, the kind built in the 50s, back when lawns were bigger and neighbors trusted each other more. At the end of the alley, the dog stopped. Completely. No panting, no barking. Just still, staring at something in front of it. Tom slowed, hand instinctively drifting toward his holstered weapon, not because of the dog, but because something about the moment felt wrong. The air was too quiet, too cold, too heavy. Then he saw it. The stray stood beside a crooked, rust-eaten storm drain, pawing the metal bars and whining with a sound Tom had never heard from an animal. A sound of grief, of fear, of urgency. "What is it?" Tom whispered, crouching down. The dog barked again, digging frantically now, nose pressed against the drain as if trying to reach something underneath. Tom knelt, pushed aside debris, and gripped the bars. He froze. His stomach dropped. His breath stilled. Because wedged between the bars, barely visible in the shadows, was a tiny hand. Small, still, covered in dirt. A child's hand. Tom's heart kicked into overdrive. "Dear God!" He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need backup and paramedics at my location now. Possible child trapped underground. Repeat, possible child trapped." The dog barked louder, circling the drain frantically. Tom knew then, this stray wasn't lost. It wasn't running from something. It was running toward something. It had been trying to save someone. Tom gripped the bars again and tried pulling. They wouldn't budge. He pressed his ear to the metal grate. Silence. No shuffling. No crying. No breathing. "Hey!" Tom shouted into the drain. "Kid, can you hear me?" Nothing. A terrible stillness settled over him. Had he arrived too late? But the dog refused to stop barking, shoving its nose through the bars, whining, digging, howling like it was begging Tom not to give up. Tom pressed his palm against the bars. "Okay, boy. I hear you. I'm not leaving. I promise." He looked around for anything he could use as leverage, rocks, scraps of wood, anything. The dog came out of nowhere, mud-covered, ribs showing, eyes wild with desperation. Then it happened fast. Tires screeched, a police cruiser swerved, and Officer Tom Reyes barely had time to shout, "Look out! Dog on the road!" But before the squad car could slow down, the stray sprinted across the intersection, dodging bumpers and horns, running like its life depended on it. People on the sidewalk gasped. A few teenagers laughed. One man actually yelled, "Hey, somebody grab the mutt before it causes an accident!" Tom ignored them. He'd been on the force for 25 years, long enough to know the difference between a stray running aimlessly and an animal running in fear. This one was terrified and determined. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12, Tom said into the radio. "We've got a stray dog sprinting eastbound on Lincoln. Possible injury. Dispatch animal control." Before he could finish, the dog skidded to a stop in the middle of the road. And that's when the bullying started. A group of older teenage boys, hoodies, bikes, cheap bravado, stepped into the street, blocking the animal's escape. "Aw, what's wrong, little freak?" one taunted, kicking dirt toward it. Another spun his bike tire dangerously close to the dog's legs. A third boy picked up a handful of gravel and tossed it, laughing when it hit. The dog yelped in pain, stumbling backward. Tom slammed the cruiser door open. "Hey! Cut it out!" he roared, voice echoing through the quiet morning. The boys scattered like frightened pigeons, but not before one sneered, "It's just a stray. Should have hit it with your car." Tom's jaw tightened. But the dog didn't look at the boys. It looked at him, right at him. Then it barked once. Not a warning bark, not fear, a plea. Then it turned and took off again. "Why are you running?" Tom muttered, already chasing after it on foot. The animal didn't run straight. It zigzagged between houses, crashed through bushes, and darted under fences like it trained for this. It kept glancing back to make sure Tom was still following, not trying to escape him, but leading him. "Okay, boy," Tom panted, climbing over a low wall. "Where are you taking me?" The dog ignored him and sprinted down a narrow alley behind a row of old houses, the kind built in the 50s, back when lawns were bigger and neighbors trusted each other more. At the end of the alley, the dog stopped, completely. No panting, no barking, just still, staring at something in front of it. Tom slowed, hand instinctively drifting toward his holstered weapon, not because of the dog, but because something about the moment felt wrong. The air was too quiet, too cold, too heavy. Then he saw it. The stray stood beside a crooked, rust-eaten storm drain, pawing the metal bars and whining with a sound Tom had never heard from an animal. A sound of grief, of fear, of urgency. "What is it?" Tom whispered, crouching down. The dog barked again, digging frantically, nose pressed against the drain, as if trying to reach something underneath. Tom knelt, pushed aside debris, and gripped the bars. He froze. His stomach dropped. His breath stilled. Because wedged between the bars, barely visible in the shadows, was a tiny hand. Small. Still. Covered in dirt. A child's hand. Tom's heart kicked into overdrive. Dear God. He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need backup and paramedics at my location now. Possible child trapped underground. Repeat, possible child trapped." The dog barked louder, circling the drain frantically. Tom knew then. This stray wasn't lost. It wasn't running from something. It was running toward something. It had been trying to save someone. Tom gripped the bars again and tried pulling. They wouldn't budge. He pressed his ear to the metal grate. Silence. No shuffling. No crying. No breathing. "Hey," Tom shouted into the drain. "Kid, can you hear me?" Nothing. A terrible stillness settled over him. Had he arrived too late? But the dog refused to stop barking, shoving its nose through the bars, whining, digging, howling like it was begging Tom not to give up. Tom pressed his palm against the bars. "Okay, boy. I hear you. I'm not leaving, I promise." He looked around for anything he could use as leverage. Rocks, scraps of wood, anything. Then, a faint movement. Barely there, but unmistakable. The tiny hand twitched. Tom's heart nearly burst. "They're alive," he whispered. "Thank you, boy. Thank you." Suddenly, everything clicked. The bruises on the dog's legs, the cut on its ear, the way it ran toward danger, not away. The dog hadn't found the child. It had been with the child, protecting them, trying to get help. And the moment Tom realized that, he also realized something far worse. The hand wasn't the only thing in that storm drain. There were footprints in the dirt, fresh ones, adult-sized, and they were leading away from the drain. Someone had been here, recently. Someone who should have helped that child. Someone who didn't. Tom felt a chill crawl up his spine. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a lost child. This was something darker. Something deliberate. He stood up, adrenaline spiking, scanning the alley. "Who did this?" he whispered. The dog stood beside him, fur bristling, staring into the shadows, as if it knew the answer. And as sirens approached in the distance, Tom realized something. The stray dog didn't just lead him to a child. It led him to a crime someone had tried very hard to bury, and that someone might still be watching.
The sirens grew louder, bouncing off the narrow alley walls, but Tom couldn't pull his eyes away from that tiny hand wedged beneath the grate. Half covered in mud, fingers curled, trembling weakly like the last flicker of a dying flame. "Hang on, kid," he murmured, pressing his fingers against the cold metal bars. "Help's coming." The stray dog, muddy, shaking, ribs visibly rising and falling with panicked breaths, leaned its head against the grate, whining in a low, mournful tone. Tom placed a steadying hand on the dog's back. "You did good, boy. Real good." The dog didn't look at him. Its eyes stayed locked on the drain. Then Tom heard it. Not loud, barely a sound, more like a breath that struggled to exist. A whimper. Soft. Weak. But alive. Tom felt something in him crack. He'd seen too many dead children in his career, too many tragedies he couldn't fix. But this time he might still have a chance. He knelt, pulled the flashlight from his belt, and shined it through the grate. The beam illuminated a small face, dirt-smeared, eyes half open, lips pale. A little girl, maybe 4 or 5, lying on her side in a narrow space beneath the drain. Her clothes were torn, her cheek was bruised, and her tiny body shivered uncontrollably. "Sweetheart?" Tom whispered. "Hey, can you hear me?" A faint moan answered. The dog barked sharply, as if telling him to hurry. Tom's radio crackled. "Wounded 12, backups 30 seconds out. Paramedics about a minute behind." "Hurry!" Tom snapped. "This kid is barely hanging on." Boots thundered onto the asphalt as 2 patrol cars slid into the alley. Officers jumped out, some instinctively reaching for weapons, until Tom raised a hand. "Stand down! It's a child, not a threat!" One of the younger officers, Carter, stared at the scene with wide eyes. "Jesus, how did you find—" Tom pointed at the stray dog. The dog now stood protectively in front of the drain, growling when anyone stepped too close. An older officer, Briggs, scoffed. "That mutt, probably the one who put her down there." Tom whirled on him, eyes blazing. "Say that again?" Briggs rolled his eyes. "I'm just saying, strays get desperate. Wouldn't be the first." Tom snapped. "The dog led me straight here. He didn't run away from guilt, he ran for help." Briggs opened his mouth to argue, but the growl from the stray made him take 1 step back. Tom ignored the argument. He grabbed a crowbar from his cruiser. "Carter, help me pry this open." Carter rushed over, positioning himself on the other end. Tom pushed with everything he had. The metal didn't budge. Again. They pushed harder. Still nothing. The grate was old, rusted, but welded into place decades ago. A government shortcut, probably, sealed shut when the drainage system was reworked. "Damn it," Tom growled. "We need more leverage." Another officer ran over with a hydraulic spreader from the trunk, a smaller version of the jaws of life. Carter positioned it. Tom steadied the tool. The moment they powered it on, the dog snarled and lunged, trying to protect the girl from the noise. Tom grabbed the dog firmly but gently by the collar of matted fur. "Easy, boy. I know it's loud, I know you're scared, but we're getting her out." The dog whimpered, but didn't bite, eyes darting between Tom and the girl. The hydraulic tool whined, metal creaking as it strained. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a loud crack. The bar shifted half an inch. "That's it," Tom shouted. "Keep it going." The officers applied more pressure. The old welds groaned, snapped, and finally, the grate bent upward. "Move!" Tom yelled, dropping to his knees and reaching into the gap. He slid his arms through and felt cold, tiny limbs. The girl was freezing, so cold that her skin felt like wet paper. Tom's heart punched his ribs. He pulled gently, afraid she'd break. "Come on, sweetheart. I've got you." The dog barked, tail wagging nervously as Tom finally lifted the girl free. Mud and cold water dripped from her clothes. Her head fell limp against his chest. "Oh, God," one officer whispered. "Blanket," Tom barked. "Right now." Carter ran to grab an emergency thermal blanket from the cruiser. The moment Tom wrapped the girl, she let out a faint, broken sob. The stray dog, still trembling, pressed its head against the girl's foot, whining softly. "She knows him," murmured Carter. Tom didn't doubt it. The dog wasn't just trying to save her. He was bonded to her. Maybe even belonged to her. The paramedics rushed in, eyes widening as they took in the scene. "What happened?" one asked. Tom stepped aside, letting them assess the girl. "Found in the storm drain. Hypothermic, possible dehydration and trauma." The medic checked the girl's pulse, then nodded grimly. If she'd been down there even another hour, she would have died. Tom swallowed hard. Behind them, Briggs pointed at the dog with a disgusted look. "We need animal control to get rid of that stray. It's aggressive." Tom's voice dropped to a dangerous low. "You order anyone to take that dog and I will personally write you up." Briggs scoffed. "It's a stray. That stray saved a child." For the first time in years, Briggs looked genuinely stunned, then annoyed. But he didn't argue again. The paramedics lifted the girl onto a sterager. The dog tried to climb onto the gurney with her. Tom knelt and put a hand on the dog's chest. "Easy, boy. She's safe now." The dog whined, pacing back and forth anxiously as the medics prepared to wheel her out. As they lifted the stretcher into the ambulance, the girl's eyes fluttered open for a split second. Her lips formed a single word. "Buddy." Tom froze. He looked back at the stray. The dog had been beaten, starved, running for miles. But now, hearing that one word, his ears perked. His entire body trembled. He barked once, short, soft, heartbreakingly hopeful. "That's your name," Tom whispered, kneeling beside the dog. "Buddy." Buddy licked Tom's hand as if begging him to follow the ambulance. "Let's go," Tom said gently. "We're not done." He stood and motioned to Carter. "Escort the ambulance to the hospital. Lights on." "Got it." As Carter ran to the cruiser, Tom looked back at the storm drain. Something gnawed at him. A memory. A detail. The footprints. The ones leading away. Someone put that girl down there, and they left her to die. This wasn't an accident. It was a crime. A cruel one. And Tom Reyes, a man who'd buried too many cases with small coffins, wasn't about to let this one slip into paperwork. He put a hand on Buddy's head. "Come on, boy," he said softly. "Let's go find who did this." Buddy barked once, and together, they headed towards the ambulance as the alley behind them returned to silence. But not peace. A pair of shadowy eyes watched them from the darkness. Someone had seen everything, and they were not happy. The child had been found alive.
The hospital ER was buzzing, but Tom barely heard any of it. His focus stayed locked on the little girl being rushed through double doors, a swarm of nurses circling her small, shivering body. Buddy, muddy paws slipping on the tile, tried to follow but slid against Tom's leg when the officer placed a firm hand down. "Easy, boy," Tom whispered again, crouching. "They're taking her somewhere safe. She'll come back out, I promise." Buddy's ears pinned back as he stared at the closing doors. His whole frame quivered with anxious, desperate energy, like he believed the girl would disappear forever if he lost sight of her. Tom knew that feeling all too well. A nurse briskly approached. "Sir, are you with the child?" "Found her, in a storm drain." Her face hardened. "Then we may need you for intake information. The doctor will speak with you shortly." She glanced at Buddy uneasily. "And the dog?" Tom straightened. "He's with me." The nurse seemed unconvinced but nodded and hurried off. Nearby, Carter was pacing with his hands on his hips, replaying the adrenaline of the rescue. "You think she'll make it?" he murmured. "She's a fighter," Tom replied, watching Buddy, who had now laid down directly against the ER doorway threshold, refusing to be moved. Tom's phone buzzed. The precinct wanted a statement, wanted reports, wanted details he wasn't ready to give yet. He silenced the phone and took a slow breath. Then he noticed the hospital's security cameras. Something clicked. He turned to Carter. "Pull up the feed from the alley." "What? Why?" "No kid ends up in a storm drain on her own," Tom said flatly. "Someone put her there. Whoever it was might have still been nearby." Carter blinked, realization dawning. "You think someone watched us?" "I think someone ran before we arrived." Carter nodded and jogged toward the reception desk to ask about the hospital's partnership with the department's surveillance system. Tom sat down in one of the ER's plastic chairs, Buddy settling at his feet. The dog curled into a tight ball, exhausted, but every time a nurse walked near those double doors, he lifted his head. "He loves her," Tom said quietly. Not in the simple, instinctive way stray dogs latch on to whoever feeds them. No. That bark he gave when she whispered his name, the way he dug through mud to expose that grate,
The frantic sprint across streets and alleys to lead Tom, that was bond. Family. A loyalty born from moments he hadn't yet seen but needed to understand. A doctor approached, peeling off gloves. His face was professional, composed, but the kind of composed that precedes news no one wants to hear. "Detective Reyes?" Tom stood. Buddy did too. "She's stabilized, hypothermic, severely dehydrated, some bruising on the ribs and arms." "Consistent with a fall?" Tom asked. The doctor hesitated. "More consistent with someone grabbing or handling her roughly." Tom's jaw tightened. "And her mental state?" "She's unconscious, but we're running tests. She'll need time. This wasn't an accident." Buddy paced, whining, as if he could sense the weight of every word. "Do you know who she is?" Tom asked. He sighed. "No ID on her. No missing person report matching her description." He lowered his voice. "We may need to involve child services." "Not yet," Tom cut in. "Detective, give me 2 hours." The doctor's expression softened just slightly. 2 hours. He walked away. Tom knelt by Buddy. "We're running out of time, boy. Whoever did this, they'll come looking, or worse, they'll try to make sure she doesn't talk." Buddy growled low, as if answering. Carter reappeared, holding a tablet. "Got the alley footage." He handed it to Tom. The video played in grainy black and white. At first, nothing. Then, a shadow. Tall, thin, moving quickly down the alley only minutes before Buddy appeared on camera dragging a torn rope behind him. "Zoom in," Tom said. Carter did. The figure dissolved into pixels, just a silhouette. But Tom's experienced eyes caught the details others wouldn't have. The stiff gait, the slight limp, the way the arm tucked close to the body. Someone injured, someone hurried, someone hiding something. Then something else, the faint glint of a reflective vest. Not construction, not city worker, volunteer organization. Search and rescue? No, wrong shape. Animal shelter? No badge. Then Tom saw it. A symbol on the back. Distorted, but still recognizable. A half circle, with 3 vertical lines. He froze. "You know it?" Carter frowned. "Oh, I know it." His stomach turned. He hadn't seen that symbol in years. Not since a case he'd buried because he had no proof. A group that called themselves Protectors of the Fold. A fringe community, half cult, half commune, that believed children needed to be taken away from corrupt urban life and raised in isolation. They targeted vulnerable families, shelters, hospitals. They always moved locations, and after a fire 10 years ago that took 3 children's lives, regional authorities claimed the group disbanded. But Tom never bought that. Now here it was, resurfacing in his city. Carter swallowed hard. "You think they're back?" "No." Tom's voice was cold and certain. "They never left." Buddy barked sharply, startling nearby nurses. He wasn't barking at them. He was barking at the tablet, at the image of the shadow. Tom stared at the dog. "You know them, don't you?" he whispered. Buddy whimpered, lowering himself to the floor. Tom clicked back through the footage, watching Buddy appear again, dragging that rope. Except it wasn't just a rope. It looked like a torn leash. A cheap one, the kind used not by pet owners, but by transport vans for group homes or unlicensed shelters. Tom's heartbeat picked up speed. "Carter, get this to station tech, enhance whatever you can, and put out quiet feelers for any vans reported near that alley." "You think they transported her?" "I think they lost her, and Buddy ran after them. I think he chased the people who hurt that little girl until they got far enough ahead to cut him loose." That meant something else. They were scared of being caught. Scared enough to ditch the dog, but not scared enough to stop.
Carter hurried away as the ER doors opened and the little girl was wheeled past, now connected to monitors. Her breathing steadier, her face calmer.
Buddy scrambled up and followed the bed until a nurse gently blocked him. "She'll be okay," she whispered kindly, though she spoke more for herself. Tom could feel the seconds ticking like thunder in his ears. They had 2 hours. Then Child Services would take her, and once that happened, whoever put her in that drain would have an even easier time disappearing. Tom leaned against the wall, thinking fast, connecting dots, rewriting everything he knew about this case. There was one more thing he needed to confirm. He turned to the doctor. "I need her clothes." The doctor blinked. "Her clothes?" "Every shred, every speck of dirt." The doctor hesitated, but nodded. Minutes later, Tom was handed a sealed bag. He slipped on gloves and examined the torn fabric. Mud, dirt, gravel from the drain, but faintly, a scent. Not rot, not city grime. A smell he recognized from old case files. Cedar and sage. The Fold's signature. They burned sage in every building. Rubbed cedar oil on children's beds as a protection ritual. Tom's blood ran cold. He looked up at Buddy. "We're not dealing with a lost child," he murmured. Buddy tilted his head. "We're dealing with an escape." Buddy barked, and in that bark, Tom heard it. Not just fear or loyalty, but urgency. Someone else was out there. More children. Hidden. Waiting. And the people who took them had just realized they made a mistake. They left one alive, and she had a dog willing to tear apart the world to lead them back.
Tom stood outside the hospital's sliding doors, breathing in the cold afternoon air as if trying to cool the fire raging inside his chest. Cars rolled up, families rushed in and out, life continued carelessly around him, but in his mind, the world had narrowed to a single point. A little girl in a hospital bed, a lone dog who refused to leave her side, and a shadowed figure whose symbol still burned in his memory like a scar he thought had faded. Buddy nudged Tom's leg, shaking him from the spiral. "Yeah," Tom whispered, scratching behind the dog's ear. "We're not done. Not even close." Carter ran out of the hospital doors, tablet in hand, face tight with urgency. "You need to see this." Tom and Buddy followed him to a quiet corner of the parking lot, where Carter set the tablet on the hood of the squad car. "We enhanced the frame as much as we could," Carter said. "Look." He pressed play. The grainy alley footage zoomed in, a blurred figure in a vest sprinting past the storm drain. No hesitation, no stumble, like they knew exactly what was inside it. "Watch the left hand," Carter murmured. Tom leaned in, there, barely visible, a smear of something dark on the cuff. "Blood?" "Could be the girls," Carter said. "We'll try to run color correction and maybe match it later." Tom exhaled, jaw clenching. "And the vehicle?" "Still checking street cams, but we got lucky." Carter tapped another file. A grainy shot from an intersection cam appeared. "This was 2 blocks from the alley. No plates visible, but that's definitely a transport van." Tom froze. White. Windowless. Side logo scraped off, rear bumper dented, same style he'd seen in old Fold reports. "Timestamp matches," Carter said quietly. They were close. Close enough that Buddy nearly caught them, but not close enough to stop them. Tom straightened, every nerve sharpening. "We need to get ahead of this." "How? They've had years to disappear." "Not disappear," Tom corrected. "Relocate." He tapped the tablet, "And now they've lost something. They'll go back to wherever they feel safe." Carter swallowed. "You think they're local?" "Not too local, but close enough to run, drop the dog, and get out before anyone noticed." Carter rubbed his temples. "So we're looking for an illegal compound, probably rural, maybe abandoned property?" "Yeah," Tom cut in, "and we're going to find it today." Buddy barked sharply, pawing at the ground like he was ready to run right that second. Tom didn't need to speak dog to understand. Buddy wasn't done. He was leading them, and he was losing patience. The call from inside the hospital broke their momentum. "Detective Reyes, she's waking up!" Tom sprinted before she even finished the sentence. Buddy bolted beside him, weaving around people with perfect precision as if nothing mattered except reaching that room. The little girl lay small and fragile under warm blankets, eyes half open, breathing slow but steady. A nurse hovered nearby, monitoring her vitals. She looked even smaller up close, thin arms, bruises blooming beneath bandages. Someone had dimmed the lights to keep her calm. Buddy approached first. The girl's eyes flickered open. She didn't speak, didn't smile, but her tiny fingers lifted, weak and trembling, reaching toward Buddy. He moved closer, carefully resting his head on the bed's edge. Her fingers brushed his fur. Tom watched her chest rise, not in a gasp of fear, but in relief, like she had found her anchor. "Hey, sweetheart," Tom said gently, crouching. "You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you." Her lips moved, a whisper, barely sound. Tom leaned in. "What's that?" She tried to speak again, words scraped raw by dehydration. This time he caught it. "Run." Buddy's ears perked. The girl blinked, tears slipping down her temples. "Run away." Tom frowned. "You want us to run away?" Weak shake of her head. "Run." They run. The words came broken, but the meaning landed like a punch. Carter, standing behind Tom, murmured, "She saw them flee." More tears pooled in the girl's eyes. Then another word fought its way out. "More." Tom felt his heart drop into his stomach. "More children?" he whispered. The girl's head moved in a faint nod. Buddy whined, pawing at the mattress. Tom grabbed the girl's small hand. "Can you tell me where? Anything at all?" She swallowed painfully, throat still raw. "Trees." Tom glanced at Carter. "Woods." "White house." Carter started typing into his phone. "White farmhouse? Country property?" "Fence? Metal. Cold." Buddy barked. The girl flinched, but Buddy immediately lowered his head, pressing softly against her arm in apology, and the fear in her eyes dissolved again. The nurse stepped closer. "Detective, she needs rest." Tom squeezed the girl's small hand gently. "You did good. We're going to help them, I promise." As he stood, the nurse adjusted the girl's IV and Tom pulled Carter into the hall. "Get every map of rural properties within a 20-mile radius. Abandoned farms, private compounds, off-grid communities, everything." Carter nodded. "Already pulling up satellite layers." Tom turned to Buddy. "Are you ready?" Buddy bolted toward the doors as if answering, "I've been ready since the minute I found her." Minutes later, the three of them were in the squad car, the siren off but the urgency unmistakable. Carter sat in the passenger seat, tablet in hand, face tight with property map loading. "We're narrowing based on her clues: woods, white structure, metal fencing. Make a radius from the alley," Tom said. "They wouldn't risk driving longer than 20 minutes with a kid trying to escape." "Got it." Buddy paced in the back seat, restless, whining occasionally as the car sped through traffic. Tom checked the mirror. "You think you can find them again, boy?" Buddy barked once, loud, certain. Tom nodded. "Good." Property after property flashed on the map, some far too close to mean roads, others too small, too open, too visible. Then Carter tapped one. "This one." Tom slowed the car. On the screen was a satellite view of a small, secluded farm property. White structures surrounded by thick trees, metal fencing around the perimeter. Abandoned for years. But something about the image felt wrong. "Zoom in," Tom ordered. Carter did. The fencing wasn't rusted or sagging. It was intact, reinforced, fresh. Tom's pulse quickened. "Run utilities on this place." Carter's fingers flew across the tablet. No official water, no electricity billed, no tax payments in 6 years. Tom's eyes narrowed. "Check heat signatures." "On it. Hold on." Carter waited as the thermal layer loaded. Buddy barked impatiently. Then the scan resolved. Tom sucked in a sharp breath. The house glowed faintly, heat signatures of multiple bodies inside, not one, not two, a cluster. Kids, Tom whispered. Carter paled. And adults. Several. Buddy pressed his paws against the window, whining sharply. Tom slammed his foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, tires screeching as they whipped around a corner. Carter grabbed the dash. You calling backup? Not yet, Tom snapped. You want to raid a compound alone? If we call it in, we'll have to wait for protocol, approvals, tactical team prep. We'll lose an hour, maybe two. And in that time, Tom finished, they could move the kids or disappear. He gripped the wheel tighter, and I won't risk that. Buddy barked again. As the car tore down the outer roads of the city, leaving neighborhoods behind for long stretches of fields and forest, something shifted in Tom's mind. He wasn't chasing criminals anymore. He was racing a clock. Because someone out there was already preparing to run. And if they reached those children before he did, there wouldn't be a second chance. The farm appeared in the distance, a white outline hidden behind tangled pines and oaks. Buddy let out a growl that vibrated through the car. Tom muttered under his breath, "Hang on, kids. We're coming."
The old county road narrowed into a single cracked lane, swallowed by towering trees on both sides. Tom eased off the gas just enough to keep the tires from fishtailing on loose gravel, but the squad car still vibrated with speed and purpose. The sun dipped behind the tree line, turning the woods into a maze of shadows. Buddy paced in the back seat, nails clicking, breath hot against the glass as he scanned the dark forest. Carter checked the coordinates again. 1/2 mile. Property's dead ahead. Tom didn't answer. He could feel it, the quiet dread settling into his bones. It wasn't fear of the place. It was fear of being late. Because the girl's whisper still echoed in his mind. More. The forest thinned and the property came into view, just as the satellite showed. The white farmhouse sat silent behind thick trees. The paint was peeling, shutters broken, roof bowed slightly. The kind of place anyone would assume was abandoned, unless they noticed the one detail most people would miss. Tom spotted it immediately. Fresh tire tracks, he murmured. Not old, not faded. Deep, recent, maybe an hour old. Carter followed Tom's gaze. Looks like heavy vehicles. Transport vans, Tom said. Same type we saw in footage. Buddy growled low in his throat. Tom killed the headlights and pulled off the road, parking the car behind a cluster of brush. Darkness swallowed them completely. Carter inhaled. We going in quiet? Tom checked his gun, slid an extra clip into his pocket, and stepped out of the car. No shouting, no lights, no warnings. Buddy hopped out beside him, instantly alert. Carter muttered, "This is insane." Tom gave him a sharp look. Those kids don't have time for protocol. Carter swallowed hard and nodded. They approached the property slowly. The driveway was packed earth, dust still floating in the air like someone had driven through minutes earlier. The first thing Tom noticed up close was the silence. Not peaceful silence, weighted silence, like the entire property was holding its breath. Buddy sniffed the ground, tail rigid, body low to the earth, his muscles coiled with tension. Tom crouched beside him. "What do you smell, boy?" A soft whine escaped the dog's throat, followed by a sharp bark pointed toward the house. Tom straightened. "He's got something." Carter whispered, "Then let's move." They skirted along the fence line. Tall, metal, too new for an abandoned property. What should have been rusted and sagging was instead reinforced with industrial bolts and fresh welds. Inside, a faint glow flickered through a basement window. Not candlelight. Electric. Hidden power source. Tom's spine stiffened. "They lied about utilities," he murmured. Carter frowned. "They're off the grid?" "Yeah, but they're definitely powered." Buddy's barking shifted into something else, a low, urgent growl aimed at the basement. He dragged Tom toward it, nails digging into the dirt. Carter knelt beside the small window. Can't see anything. Glass is tinted. Tom wiped the grime from the edges, squinting. Then froze. A tiny shadow moved inside. Too small. Too soft. Too slow. A child. Tom's chest tightened. They're here. Buddy scratched at the ground, frantic. Carter whispered, "We need backup. We don't have time. If that van was here recently, they might be prepping to move them again." A faint hum vibrated under their feet. Machinery, maybe. Ventilation? Tom tested the basement window, locked from inside. He scanned the foundation. 2 small vents near the ground, metal bars across them. Buddy shoved his nose through one, sniffing wildly. From inside came a soft sound, like a whimper. Tom's heart snapped. He stood, scanning the side of the house. "We're not getting in from here. Doors or windows are reinforced." Carter looked around nervously. Then how? Buddy suddenly bolted away from them, rounding the corner of the house. Tom sprinted after him. "Buddy, wait!" The 3 of them skidded to a stop behind the house, where a rotting shed leaned crookedly against the trees. Buddy was clawing at the ground beneath it. No. No way. Carter blinked. "You think—" Tom dropped to his knees and ran his hands across the dirt. Soft. Disturbed. Not natural. Someone covered it. Recently. Buddy barked furiously, kicking dirt everywhere. Tom and Carter grabbed shovels leaning against the shed wall, tools that shouldn't have been left out if the place was truly abandoned. They dug, sweat beading on their foreheads as the earth gave way. Minutes passed. Then Tom's shovel hit something solid. Carter froze. "Tell me that's not—" Tom brushed away soil with his hands, revealing metal. A hatch. Painted brown to blend with the dirt. He whispered. "They built an underground entrance." Buddy whined, pushing his nose against the edge. Tom grabbed the handle. Locked. Carter stood, looking rattled. This could lead anywhere. Storage rooms, tunnels. Tom pulled his gun from his holster. "Then we're going in." He held up 3 fingers for Carter. 3, 2, 1. Tom pulled the hatch. It didn't budge. Buddy growled, lips curling back. Tom tightened his grip and yanked harder. A loud crack split the air as the lock snapped off. The hatch swung open, exhaling a cold, metallic breath from the darkness below. Lights flickered faintly from deep inside. Carter peered in and shivered. "That doesn't look like any basement I've ever seen." Tom's voice was steady, but his heart hammered in his ribs. "Stay behind me. Buddy stays in front." Buddy bounded down the first few steps, silent now, every movement purposeful. Tom followed, gripping the railing with one hand, gun in the other. The stairs creaked, but held. A dim hallway stretched ahead, concrete walls stained and old, wires running along the ceiling like veins. Carter whispered, "This wasn't built by amateurs." No, it wasn't. Buddy trotted forward, pausing at intersections, choosing paths with certainty. Tom trusted him completely. They passed empty storage rooms, rusted metal doors, flickering light bulbs, and patches of old blood on the floor that hadn't been cleaned up well enough. Carter muttered, "Jesus." Buddy stopped so abruptly that Tom nearly tripped. He stared at the door at the end of the hall, white, reinforced, with a coated lock panel. A small symbol was carved in the metal. Tom's stomach flipped. The fold insignia. Carter whispered, "This is it." A soft cry drifted from behind the door, then another. A chorus of small, terrified voices. Tom reached for the door. Locked. But he wasn't stopping. He turned to Carter. "Get ready." "For what?" Buddy backed up, bracing like a sprinter ready to launch. Tom nodded. "On 3, we break it." Carter hesitated only a moment before raising his weapon. Tom pressed his palms to the cold metal and exhaled. 1. Buddy tensed. 2. The cries grew louder. 3. Tom slammed his shoulder into the door with everything he had, and the world on the other side of the threshold would change everything.
Officer Raymond Hale stared into the darkness of the old storm drain, the stench of rot and stagnant water washing over him as the stray dog, mud-soaked, trembling but determined, stood at the mouth of the tunnel, barking urgently. Behind him, the faint echoes of distant sirens mixed with the muttered cursing of the officers who had spent hours trudging through the woods, following a dog they'd once thought was simply a nuisance. Now every man stood frozen, because the smell coming from that tunnel wasn't just rot, it was death. Raymond's chest tightened, his breath came shallow. For a moment, he wasn't in that forest anymore. He was 21 years old again, boots heavy from mud in a desert far from home, standing in front of a collapsed building with the same smell seeping through the cracks. He blinked hard, forcing himself back to the present as the dog whined again, pawing at the concrete lip of the drain as if begging him to hurry. Deputy Collins swallowed hard behind him. "Ray, we need backup before we move in." Raymond didn't look back. "Backup will take 40 minutes. Whatever's in there, it's fresh." As if to confirm it, the dog barked sharply and darted into the tunnel. "Damn it! Rusty!" Raymond shouted, instinct overpowering fear. He dropped to his hands and knees and crawled in after the animal. "Raymond, get back here!" Collins yelled, but the tunnel swallowed the sound. Inside the drain, the world shrank. Cold water soaked through Raymond's pants immediately. The ceiling pressed so low he had to hunch to keep moving. The deeper he crawled, the more everything echoed. The dripping water, his own breath, the tap of the dog's paws ahead of him. He kept going. Because he knew something now. This dog hadn't been running from the cops all day. It had been running to something. Or someone. A few yards in, the tunnel widened just enough for him to crouch. His flashlight beam cut through the dark and caught Rusty standing still, tail rigid, staring at something deeper inside. Raymond followed the dog's gaze. At first he thought they reached the end of the tunnel. But then he saw it. An old maintenance hatch on the right wall, barely visible under a thick coat of rust and dirt. The metal was bent, pried open by force. Someone had been in here recently. Raymond's pulse kicked harder. "Easy, boy," he whispered, shining his flashlight at the hatch. Rusty growled softly. That was all the warning he got. A faint sound, so faint Raymond might have missed it if he hadn't stopped breathing. A whimper. High-pitched. Human. A child. Cold panic shot through his veins as every muscle in his body went rigid. "Dear God," he breathed. He pushed against the edge of the hatch, rust flaking away, sprinkling into the water. The door groaned open, revealing a second, narrower tunnel hidden beyond it, a maintenance corridor no one had used in decades. The air inside was warmer, damp, thicker. Something metallic hung in it. Blood. His flashlight flickered across dirt-caked walls, old cables, pipes dripping condensation. Then he heard it again. "Help." A whisper. No, more like a croak. Weak. Barely alive. His lungs locked. For a moment he couldn't move, couldn't think. The only reason he didn't break down right then was because Rusty nudged his thigh with his nose, whining softly. Like he was saying, "You found it. Now go." Raymond forced his legs to move. "Raymond, get in here now!" His voice ricocheted off the walls, echoing back at him as he pushed into the narrow corridor. Rusty stayed at his side, walking slowly, ears tilted forward. The sound came again, another small cry, followed by a faint scraping, like someone trying to move but too weak to manage it. As they neared the back of the corridor, Raymond's eyes landed on a shape slumped against the wall. His breath hitched violently. It was a girl, maybe 10 years old. Thin, pale, covered in dirt, duct tape looped around her wrists. A tear-stained line ran down one cheek. Her eyes blinked slowly, heavy, unfocused. Raymond dropped to his knees. Hey, sweetheart. I'm Officer Hale. You're safe now. We're going to get you out of here." Her lips parted, trembling. "Dog," she whispered. Raymond looked at Rusty. The dog slid forward on his belly, inching toward the girl like he understood the fragility of the moment. He sniffed her carefully, then licked her hand. It was the first time she'd moved with any strength. Her fingers twitched weakly, curling into his fur. Raymond swallowed hard as emotions climbed his throat. He couldn't remember the last time a moment hit him this hard. He'd seen death, he'd seen cruelty, but seeing a lost girl cling to a stray dog like he was her lifeline, it tore something open inside him. Colin's voice echoed from the tunnel behind them. "Ray, what the hell is going on?" Raymond didn't look back. His eyes stayed locked on the girl. "We found her. We found one." Colin sucked in a breath. "One?" Raymond nodded, slowly. Because now that he was looking, really looking, he saw things he hadn't noticed at first. The scuff marks on the far wall, a shredded backpack, a second piece of duct tape lying discarded in the corner. This girl hadn't been here alone, and whoever put her here had crawled out of this same hole only hours ago, maybe minutes. "Call it in," Raymond said low. "We need medics, search teams, everyone." Colin stumbled backward, heart pounding. Right, on it." The girl whimpered again, and Raymond gently slid his arms under her, lifting her carefully. She was light, too light, bone thin. Her head fell against his shoulder. Rusty stayed close, eyes locked on her, whining softly. Raymond spoke to her again, keeping his voice calm even as adrenaline shook his hands. "You're okay. You're with us now. You're going home." A single tear slid from the girl's eye. "Dog saved me," she whispered. Raymond pressed his jaw tight. "Yeah, he did." He carried her toward the opening of the maintenance corridor. Rusty walked ahead, tail raised, acting like a guide. When the first officers appeared at the entrance of the storm drain, their faces drained of color. "Oh my God! Is she alive? Get a medic kit down here." Raymond stepped past them, climbing slowly out of the drain with the girl in his arms. The sudden rush of cold night air hit them both like a wave. Flashing lights lit the woods like a surreal dream. An ambulance screeched up the dirt path. Paramedics rushed over, carefully transferring the girl onto a stretcher, covering her with blankets, checking her pulse, whispering reassurances. Rusty tried to follow, barking anxiously. Raymond grabbed his collar gently. "Easy, buddy. She's safe now." Then something happened he didn't expect. The girl, barely conscious, lifted her hand weakly toward the dog. Don't leave him," she murmured. Raymond's chest tightened. One of the paramedics glanced at the dog with a confused frown. Is that your canine?" Ray shook his head. "No, he's a stray." The paramedic blinked. "Well, he saved her." Raymond looked down at Rusty. The dog gazed back at him, eyes steady, resolute. And in that moment, Raymond knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Because if one kidnapped child had been held down there were more. The one they hadn't found yet. The one the dog had been trying to lead them to all along. Raymond's voice hardened as he straightened, turning toward the woods. This was the break we needed. Behind him, Rusty stood tall, ready, waiting. The hunt wasn't over. It had just reached its turning point.
The forest was alive with voices, radios crackling, officers rushing toward the ambulance like insects drawn to a flare in the night. But amid the chaos, Officer Raymond Hale felt a strange stillness settling deep inside him, an uneasy quiet that didn't match the noise around him. The girl was safe, yes, but the tunnel, the hatch, the evidence of someone else lurking down in that hidden corridor. None of it felt finished. Rusty nudged his leg restlessly, pacing in a small circle. The dog wasn't acting relieved, not even close. His muscles were tight, his ears pinned forward, his nose kept lifting toward the woods as if he sensed something no human could. Ray knelt beside him. "Where's the rest, boy?" he murmured. "What else are we missing?" Rusty stared into the trees. Not the tunnel, not the ambulance, the trees. Before he could think it through, Collins jogged up behind him, breathless. "Ray, we've got a confirmed match on the girl. Name's Elena Carter, reported missing from Brookline 3 days ago." Ray flinched. 3 days. She'd survived 3 days down there? "Parents are on their way," Collins added. "FBI is too." Ray exhaled sharply. The FBI.
That meant the case was big, bigger than their tiny precinct could handle, but it didn't matter. They weren't leaving this to anyone else, not when they were this close. A medic approached, wiping sweat from his forehead. She's stable enough to transport, but she keeps asking the same thing over and over. Ray's stomach tightened. What is she asking? The medic hesitated. She keeps saying, "Don't let him take the others." A cold, hollow silence settled over the clearing. Ray's heart slammed into his ribs. "Others?" She said it like that? Almost exactly those words. Collins swore louder than he meant to, drawing startled glances from nearby officers. Ray didn't move. He didn't blink. Because Rusty had stopped pacing. Every muscle in the dog's body had gone rigid, tail straight, eyes locked toward the dark line of the woods like a sniper sighting a target. Ray rose slowly, a prickling sensation crawling up his spine. "Collins, how many missing kids have been reported in the last month?" Collins blanched. 5, from different counties. No solid leads." Rusty barked. Once, sharp, decisive. Ray turned toward him. The dog barked again, then bounded into the tree line, disappearing through the brush. "Hey!" Ray shouted, already sprinting after him. "Rusty! Collins! Move!" Branches whipped past him, mud splashed up his legs. The forest swallowed the lights behind him, leaving only the narrow beam of his flashlight slicing through the dark. He could hear Rusty ahead, barking, growling, making sounds Ray had never heard from a dog before. Not fear, not aggression. Purpose. Collins crashed through the brush behind him, cursing. "Ray, slow down! What are we chasing?" "The dog knows something," Ray shouted back. Rusty's barking grew louder, more frantic. Then abruptly, it stopped. Ray skidded to a halt, chest heaving. The silence that followed was suffocating. "Rusty?" he whispered. Nothing. His pulse hammered in his ears as he spun, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Rusty!" A rustle. A low whine. Ray lurched forward, sweeping the beam across the forest floor. There. Rusty crouched low beside a cluster of thick brush, pawing at a patch of disturbed ground. The leaves were kicked aside, mud churned. Something had been dragged. Collins arrived seconds later. "What the hell is this?" Ray lowered himself, running his fingers along the deep grooves in the dirt. Footprints. Heavy ones. Boots. Someone had moved quickly, no stumbling, no hesitation. Someone strong, someone used to carrying weight. And the drag marks? Those were smaller. Child-sized. Ray's breath hitched. They moved someone through here. Collins knelt beside him, jaw tightening. One of the others? Maybe, or maybe, someone they were moving to the tunnel before we showed up and spooked them. Rusty whined again, then shoved his nose deeper into the brush, sniffling fiercely. He forced himself into the thicket, emerging on the other side with a piece of fabric in his teeth, pink, torn, damp. Ray reached out with shaking hands. "Is that—" "A shirt, kid-sized." Ray's stomach twisted. Rusty barked twice, then darted deeper into the woods, his nose glued to the ground like he was following a scent trail only he could detect. Ray turned to Collins. "Call it in. Tell them we have another possible victim. Tell them the kidnapper is on foot and maybe close. What about you?" Ray didn't answer. He was already running. The forest thickened as he pushed forward, tree trunks crowding in, low branches scraping his arms. Rusty stayed ahead, weaving through the obstacles, pausing occasionally to make sure Ray hadn't fallen behind. Then, the trees broke open into a clearing. Ray stumbled to a stop. A small hunting shack sat in the middle of the clearing, rotted, sagging, half-collapsed, except for the metal padlock gleaming new on the door. It didn't belong. Neither did the fresh tire tracks in the mud, or the faint glow of a battery lantern spilling out from a crack in the boarded-up window. Ray felt his breath leave him. "They've been using this place." Rusty growled, low and long, hackles rising. Collins burst into the clearing seconds later, nearly tripping at the sight. "Holy hell!" Ray moved toward the shack slowly, gun drawn. His steps were soft, controlled. Every instinct he had screamed danger.
Rusty pressed himself against the door, sniffing violently, whining in desperation. Ray crouched beside him, listening. At first, nothing. Then, a sound. A tiny thud. Then another. Then, a faint voice. "Hello? Is someone there?" Colin stiffened. "Oh my God!" Ray pushed Rusty gently aside and pressed his ear to the door. "This is Officer Raymond Hale. Answer me. Are you hurt?" A small, trembling voice replied, "Please don't leave." Ray stood up suddenly. "Collins, get bolt cutters, now! I didn't bring—" A shotgun blast ripped through the silence, splintering wood, shattering air. Ray dove to the ground as a figure burst from the far tree line, silhouette tall, thick, wearing a hood, carrying the shotgun like it weighed nothing. Rusty snarled and lunged, but the blast had come too fast, too unexpected. "Take cover!" Ray shouted. The man didn't fire again. He ran, vanishing into the forest with terrifying speed, boots thudding against the earth. Ray pushed himself up, adrenaline blinding, rage sharpening his vision. He turned to Collins. "Stay here. Guard that door. Don't let anyone near these kids." Collins nodded fiercely, taking position behind a fallen log. Ray sprinted after the man. Rusty shot forward beside him, matching every step. Branches snapped, mud flew. The shape ahead of them grew smaller, but stayed visible, navigating the forest with practiced precision. Ray yelled, "Stop! Police!" The figure didn't even flinch. Ray felt something dark twist inside him. This wasn't a panicked criminal. This was a hunter, a predator, one who knew these woods better than any local, and one who would kill to keep his secrets buried. But he hadn't counted on Rusty, and he hadn't counted on Raymond Hale. Ray pushed harder, faster, no hesitation, no fear, because everything was unraveling now, and they were finally exposing the monster who had been hiding in their woods for years.
Ray's lungs burned as he tore through the forest, branches whipping across his arms and face, the echo of the shotgun blast still ringing in his ears. The hooded man moved fast, too fast for someone burdened by guilt alone. This was muscle memory. This was someone who'd run this escape route 100 times before. Rusty stayed ahead, slicing through the trees like a shadow with teeth. His low growls vibrated through the quiet woods, growing louder every time the gap between them and their target narrowed. Ray shouted again, "Stop! Police!" The man didn't stumble, didn't slow, didn't look back. He wanted Ray to chase him. He wanted to pull him deeper. Ray knew it. His instinct screamed it, but he didn't stop. Because somewhere behind him, children were locked in that shack. Children who might not survive the night if this man got away. He pushed forward. The forest floor sloped downward sharply. The man slid the descent effortlessly, boots cutting through wet soil like skis. Ray nearly lost his footing, but Rusty steadied him, pressing against his leg mid-run. Ahead of them, a narrow ravine opened, a perfect escape route, or a perfect trap. The man vaulted down into it, disappearing behind a rock outcrop. Ray followed without hesitation, sliding down the muddy bank and landing hard on his shoulder. The world jolted, but he was up within seconds. Rusty circled him and barked once, urgent. Then the gunshot came, not aimed at Ray. A warning shot. A message. You're getting too close. Ray pressed his back against the ravine wall, pulling Rusty close. "Stay low, boy. He's got the advantage." Rusty growled, trembling, not with fear, but fury. Ray peeked over the rock. Empty. Silent. Too silent. The ravine curved sharply, perfect place for the man to hide. Ray held his breath, listening. A twig snapped. He spun. Too late! The man lunged from behind a boulder, tackling Ray into the dirt. The shotgun flew from his hands. Rusty charged instantly, teeth bared, but the man swung a heavy forearm and knocked the dog aside. Ray threw a punch. The man blocked easily. He wasn't just strong, he was trained. Ray managed to wrench free and scrambled toward the shotgun, sliding across the mud, fingers brushing the stock. A boot slammed down on his wrist. Pain shot through his arm. The hooded man leaned over him, breathing hard, voice low and rough.
You should have stayed in town, officer. Ray gritted his teeth. Let them go. Let the kids go. This isn't about the kids, the man growled. It never was. Rusty launched at him from the side, clamping his jaws around the man's coat sleeve. The man reeled, losing balance. Ray twisted free, yanking his arm away and scrambling up, grabbing the shotgun before the man could recover. Don't move! The man froze. Rusty held his sleeve, growling deeply. Ray steadied the shotgun. Show your face. A long moment passed. Then, slowly, the man reached up and pulled back his hood. Ray's heart stopped. It was Sheriff Logan Reeves, the town's own sheriff, the man who'd sworn to protect them, the man who'd supposedly been leading the search for the missing children. Ray staggered back. No, that's... Logan sneered. You'd think you were the only one who cared about those kids? I did what needed to be done. Ray gritted his teeth. You kidnapped them. I rescued them, Logan snapped, from parents who were worse than monsters, from homes that beat them, ignored them, starved them. I gave them a place to stay, a place where they could grow. Ray's voice cracked. You locked them in cages. They were safe, Logan roared. Safe from the world. Safe from people like you who look the other way until a kid is broken beyond repair. Ray trembled, not from fear, but rage. You don't get to decide who lives in a cage. Logan stepped forward, hands raised. Think about it, Ray. You saw the girl. She was scared to go home. They all were. They begged me not to take them back. Rusty growled louder, teeth grinding. Ray shook his head. You're sick. Logan's eyes narrowed. Maybe, but I'm not done. In a flash, Logan reached behind his back, pulling a hunting knife from a hidden sheath. Ray fired. The shotgun blast echoed through the ravine, birds scattering into the sky. Logan dropped the knife. Then he dropped to his knees, and then he fell face first into the mud. Rusty barked once. Final. Sharp. Ray stood frozen, chest heaving, the weight of everything crashing over him like a collapsing mine. He had killed the sheriff, but he had saved the children. He fell to his knees, gripping Rusty's fur. Good boy. You did it. You did everything. Rusty licked his face gently, whining. Ray struggled to breathe. Then, the faintest sound reached him through the trees. A siren. Then another. Collins, back up! They had followed the trail. They were coming. Ray forced himself to his feet and radioed in, voice shaky. This is Officer Hale. Suspect down. I need units to my location. And send someone to that shack. There are kids inside. The woods erupted with movement within minutes. Officers rushing in, calling commands, fanning out. Collins reached Ray first, eyes widening at the sight of Logan's body. Ray, Jesus, you okay? Ray nodded numbly. Check the shack, now. Collins didn't hesitate. Ray leaned against a tree, exhausted. Rusty pressed into his side like a living anchor. Minutes later, Collins' voice echoed through the clearing. We got them! They're alive! Cheers erupted. Some officers cried. Rusty barked happily, tail wagging for the first time in hours. Ray closed his eyes as relief finally washed over him. It wasn't joy. Not yet. With the truth so heavy, the betrayal so deep, the town's own sheriff revealed as the monster hiding in plain sight. But the kids were alive. That was enough. Later, after the ambulances, the news reporters, the questioning, the chaos, Ray sat on the back of his patrol car with Rusty beside him. The sun was rising over the tree line, turning the sky soft gold. Collins approached quietly. They're calling you a hero, you know. Ray shook his head. The hero is right here. He patted Rusty's head. He never gave up. Collins smiled. He's a hell of a dog. Ray looked at Rusty, eyes stinging. He's family. Rusty leaned into him. Collins sighed. Town would be the same after this. Sheriff Reeves, people trusted him. They'll heal, Ray whispered. But not today. Collins nodded. You're heading home? Ray looked at the forest, at the path where darkness ended and the dawn had finally broken through. He took a long, steady breath. Yeah. It's time. Rusty climbed into the patrol car first, curling up on the seat like he finally felt safe enough to rest. Ray slid into the driver's seat. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to believe that healing was possible, that even after the darkest descent, someone would always be there to lead you back into the light. Someone with 4 paws, a fierce heart, and a loyalty no human could ever match.